I've spent a lot of time thinking about this video, and it's taking me a lot of courage to make it. So just bear with me. Doing this without a script. I have a little bit of an outline, but this one's really coming from the heart. So when I started this channel, I had the vision of it being very, very uplifting, focused on healing modalities, mindset, nutrition, movement, supplements, all of that. And it totally still is. When I began this channel, it was 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. And the place that I was in was already one where I was overcoming a lot of difficult times and difficult things in my life and challenges. I was already a stage 4 thriver, healing from a stage 4 diagnosis. And when I began the channel, it was really focused on all of the healing things I was doing and the routine that I was building and all of the things that I was finding that were helping me. And then, just as a recap, at that point, I had lost my son, my then 5-year-old son. He passed away from cancer at the same time as I was battling stage 4 cancer. So, for those of you who may not know my full backstory, that is where my channel comes from. It's the journey that I went on with my son in 2022 and 2023 when we both battled stage 4 cancer together at the same time. He passed away June of 2023, and then about 6 weeks after that, I learned that I was still stage 4. And so it was from there that my healing truly began and where I started the channel. And things were going pretty well, all things considered. And it was really showing me what I was made of and how resilient I was. And then shortly, not too long after that, my marriage fell apart. I had to sell my childhood home. I had to begin a new life as a single mother. And, that came with a lot of financial burden and just the struggles of starting an entire new chapter that I truly never asked for. Not that anybody asks for the cancer journey either, but at that time, I had just found a rhythm in my healing just to be thrown back down again. And so I basically had to start from scratch. And a lot of the healing that I was doing, it became harder and harder to maintain that consistency because for me, life began to feel more and more difficult. For a channel and a brand that's called Stage 4 Thriver, I really had a period of time where my life felt a lot more like surviving than thriving. And it was hard for me to keep the consistency going because I was trying to figure out for myself, like, what does thriving look like when you're barely hanging on? And I've realized that if I'm not being honest about the struggle, then I'm not being a good coach to you, to all of you. But it's taken a long time for me to be able to say some of these things out loud because so many of these things feel like failures. But the more I look around and the more I see other people going through their journeys, we're all facing these difficult things in our lives. And the more that we can be honest and real about it, I think that's another place where the healing can come from. I think for a while, I didn't want to create content until my life was figured out and in a better direction. But then I realized that I don't know if that day will even come, I don't know when any of us really have it all figured out and when life stops being challenging, because for as long as I've been alive, there's always some kind of challenge to overcome, and being able to sit with that and recognize how hard things can be, that is part of what thriving means to me and always has. And so I just didn't really want to keep it a secret anymore, that the last 2 years of my life have been really, really tough. And I'm basically in a place where I'm still not fully out of the hole. I'm still trying to figure out my future and my finances and a career. And I'm still struggling. But at the same time, I do believe that the knowledge that I've gained and the experience that I've had, I know that there is something really strong and beautiful and powerful that I have to offer the world. And I just have to do it in a way that's authentic. And I think my fear has been that when people are looking for somebody to look up to with healing, they might be looking for somebody who's fully on the other side, who is fully healed, fully restored, and turning back and offering a hand and saying, I can help you get here too. I have the secret sauce, or, I've figured it out. So in order for me to say these things and to have to be vulnerable and to admit that I don't have it figured out, it does bring up a little bit of that fear that somehow it makes me less of a coach, or like less of, the wisdom or the experience, the information that I have to offer, that somehow it's not valid, but it is. When I went through the separation of my marriage, it was at the peak of when I was doing my healing modalities of running, breathing, and cold plunging. And those things were helping me immensely. And just through that enormous life change, it threw me off. And it was really hard to come back to it. I fought to come back to it over time. I was able to run the Boston Marathon in the spring of 2025. But after that, I really did fall off. And I realized that the further I got away from those modalities, the further I got away from my authentic core of what healing means to me. And so I started doing those things again in the last few days. And it's been almost like a sense of like a homecoming, and a big epiphany of like coming back to myself, returning to myself, returning to the things that I know that work. And I think that's what is part of the strength that's been given to me in order to make this video. It's hard to balance all the things, especially when you get a diagnosis. It's kind of like a lifelong commitment to your health. You can never really let it go. You can never really forget about it. You can never really say like, that's totally in the background, because you never know if it can come back. And so it's a lot of pressure if you are struggling in your life, maybe with your marriage, or maybe it's something else like your career or finances or whatever, just stresses in your life. When you know that your health is the most important thing, having anything tear you away from that can be extremely frustrating. But at the same time, sometimes you can't help it, because that's just what life is. There's demands, there's things that have to be put higher on the priority list. But I always try to remember that, you have a million problems until you don't have your health. And then when you don't have your health, you have one. And so I try to remember that my health should be priority number one. And for the last 2 years, I've been just, trying to survive and keep my head above water. And so the health has taken lower priority to finding a job and paying the bills and basically living in a life that doesn't feel like thriving at all to me. And so that's another thing that I want to be real about, that it's really hard to have that mentality when there's a lot of stressful things going on in your life. So, but it is important to know that, if you don't have your health, none of that other stuff matters. And I need to hear that advice just as much as the next person does. Even though I've been through this and I know better, I am not immune to the pressures and stresses of life just taking over everything. So if that's where you are, I just want to see you in that and acknowledge that, and just, let you know that you are really not alone. I guess another thing that I would really like to bring into the conversation is, I think one of the reasons why I've been holding back on talking about how hard my life has been is that I think when it comes to healing and wellness and recovery, there's a lot of messaging it's like toxic positivity, that if you focus on the negative or the darkness and the shadow, that somehow it's your fault that things are going the way they are. You're not vibing high frequency enough, or like you don't have enough faith, or somehow it's your fault. And that for me has been a very dangerous mentality. And I think one thing that's missing from the healing space is the space itself to just sit in the ick and to recognize it for exactly what it is. To just be able to look at it and say, you know what, this sucks. And and I feel like I'm doing everything right, and I have had faith, and I have thought positively, and I have gone through all the motions, and it's still a struggle. I think there needs to be room for that conversation without it dipping into like, well, now you're thinking negatively, or you're gonna somehow make things worse for yourself if you're going into that dark space. But I think that if you deny the existence of the shadow, you're just denying reality itself. And honestly, like, there is no way over, under, or around. The only way is through. And for me, going through all the things that I've gone through, it's been paradox. It's been the existence of positive and negative, light and dark, you know, the shadow, the grief and the joy, all of it simultaneously in ways that are inexplainable, in ways that we don't have words for. It's been, one of the profound aspects of my journey is like seeing just how two completely opposite feelings can exist in the same space. And so you can have hope, and you can have optimism, and you can see a bright future while also acknowledging that the here and now is really freaking hard. And so I may not be coming here today with advice for a modality or a supplement or anything like that, but what I am offering is the space for that reality. So if you are in a space right now where you feel like you've done all the things, and you want to heal, and you're working on these things, but life just keeps throwing things at you, all I'm here to say is I get it, and you're not alone. So I feel like what has helped me, and is what is currently helping me, is a sense of returning to myself in whatever capacity that looks like. I say to my coaching clients all the time that it's not about going from 0 to 100 and like challenging, the crap out of yourself and like trying to push it to new levels. It's really only ever about finding your boundary, your edge, and going over it by anywhere from 1 to 10%. And that's it. It's not a matter of like getting a huge breakthrough. It's a matter of incremental change over time. So it's every single day, 1% more. And then sometimes you just hold the line. And then if you have seasons of struggle, like the one that I am still currently getting out of, I think that's where we are meant to just kind of sit and learn from, just how difficult life can be, while figuring out what our non-negotiables are. So maybe, a non-negotiable is, no matter how bad things get, I'm at least going to take some of these supplements that I know work for me. For a long time, my line was the run. Even if I was just running around the block, it takes no more than 5 minutes, but as long as I did it, that was my line. And I will admit that that line was crossed just because I have been struggling and, dealing with anxiety and depression just from everything that's happened in the last few years. It's been a lot to fight my way back from. In the last few days, I've been able to shake it off a little, go for a run, do my breath work. And what's really been eye-opening is how quickly the feeling of returning to myself can be. So that is one message I do want to share, is that if you feel like you're really far away from yourself, that you're really far gone and in the trenches, I get it, because I have 100% been there. I do want to encourage you to maybe consider that the other side of that might be closer than you think. It might be closer than you think. And if there's things that you've tried in the past that have made you feel good, if even for a moment, just to try to do those things, even if it's like 5 minutes of meditation or just sitting in silence or praying or journaling. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be just starting back from step one and then choosing where that new line is. Just, where you're willing to meet yourself each day. I definitely want to connect with my people, my community and audience, just like this, just talking. So I'm really curious, just let me know in the comments, how are you doing? Do you resonate with any of this? Having, your healing journey is happening alongside of all of life's other struggles. Let's talk about it. Let's make space for things that are real without getting into the negative, but you know, without the toxic positivity as well, because that's important. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Keep thriving.